All right, guys, welcome into my official college football New Year's 6 picks and predictions. Now, I'm going to be predicting the four non playoff New Year's 6 games, and then in a separate video, probably next Monday, I will be exclusively predicting both of these semifinals. But I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about each of these four games and give my prediction on them based off of everything we know right now, beginning with the first New Year's 6 bowl game of the year. It is the Cotton Bowl. This will be happening, I want to say, on a Friday night at 8 o'clock. Either way, this game taking place in AT&T Stadium, the Super Stadium. You do have Missouri right now sitting minus 1.5. This line opened Ohio State minus 7.5. You've actually might have been 6.5, but Kyle McCord goes into the portal. Ohio State dealing with some other players leaving. My take on this line changing so much is based upon two different things. Number one, this is Missouri's Super Bowl. I mean, this is like the pinnacle. Normally you talk about a New Year's Six Bowl, it's kind of down, it's meaningless. Well, not for Missouri. This is like going back to old times when this game really means something. Missouri is going to play super hard in this one. I'm guessing they're going to have zero opt-outs because Luther Burden is only a sophomore. They should have everyone ready to go. They had a crazy surprise year. A lot of people thought they were going to finish in the bottom half of the SEC. And then Ohio State, it's the exact opposite. They lose to Michigan for the third straight time. McCord's in the portal. Ohio State fans are saying Ryan Day should be fired. And you're dealing with a demotivated Buckeyes team. Although I do think it is kind of ridiculous. Missouri sitting minus 1.5. Ohio State 75% chance to win in terms of the analytics. The analytics don't know about Kyle McCord, but I really don't think Kyle McCord affects a game to 8 or 9 points in terms of the overall line. So I still do like Ohio State in this one. Ohio State was in a very similar spot against Utah. Now, obviously, CJ Stroud did play in that game. That was the CJ Stroud JSN game, but Ohio State's defense was a lot worse. This year, there's already rumors going on that Ohio State is pretty much going to have everyone on the defensive side of the ball. There's the thought maybe JTT sits out, but I don't know. He might play because right now people are saying he's a second-round pick. Denzel Burke, he's on the fence. Everyone else you would expect to play for Ohio State on the defensive side, meaning they should hold Missouri down at least a little bit. Should be a fun game, kind of similar to the Ohio State-Utah one, where it's kind of a meaningless New Year's 6 game, but it's fun. And I do have the Buckeyes coming out on top. They do have a lot more talent than Missouri, but Missouri definitely more motivated to be here. Either way, there's that one. The next one, it is the Peach Bowl, so this game taking place the next day at noon. Penn State sitting minus 3.5, given a 72% chance to win. So Ole Miss coming into this game, very suspect offense, but there is the narrative with Jackson Dart possibly returning next year. He's going to want to play well going into next season. Lane Kiffin's still there. Their offense did play very badly in the Egg Bowl. They ended up winning that game, only scoring 17 points. Penn State, on the other hand, very polarizing team. A lot of people do not like Penn State, even though in terms of analytics, this is a top 5, even top 4 team, according to some analytics, because they always blow out the teams they're supposed to blow out, and then they lose to Michigan and Ohio State, but they normally keep the games relatively close. Their last game on Black Friday, they absolutely trounced Michigan State. I know Michigan State is terrible, but it was really bad. Penn State, I do like them to win this game and cover. I also like the under in this one. These are two good games because it's the Big Ten versus the SEC, and we'll really get to see. And then, of course, with the main event being Michigan versus Alabama. But you can see Ohio State, Missouri, kind of a toss-up right now. Buckeyes have more talent. And then Ole Miss versus Penn State. I would give the edge to Penn State. Penn State also plays well in bowl games, big-time bowl games under James Franklin. They always seem to win their New Year's Six Bowl, and this is a winnable game. You could make the argument Penn State's offense isn't good enough. Certainly, they do have severe issues when it comes to skill position talent in terms of explosiveness. They've got no receivers that are explosive. That's a problem, but they've got a really good defense going up against an Ole Miss team that just struggled against Mississippi State, scoring only those 17 points. So I think that the Penn State defense versus the Ole Miss offense favors Penn State. They get the job done in kind of a mucky, lower scoring game with a weird score of 24-19. Next, we do have Georgia and Florida State. So both of these teams, you could argue, should be in the playoff. You do have Florida State right now. They're undefeated. They are ACC champions. A lot of people think they should have been in, taking on Georgia. Not many people talking about them, being in the playoff, considering they did lose to Alabama, but it is funny. They're minus 14 in this game. And I don't know if I'm missing something. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just overrating Georgia, because I did think Georgia was going to beat Alabama, but I think Georgia is going to absolutely trounce Florida State. This spread to me should be 17, maybe 17 and a half. Georgia is, you can say, well, they're not motivated. They won the national title the last 2 years. They're not even in it this year. But it just seems like that's a well-oiled machine. And they're not going to lose to a backup QB who struggled against Florida. I mean, right now, FSU, I know there's the narrative that FSU has a really good defense. Do they really have that good of a defense? I mean, they played well against Louisville. Like everyone's talking about FSU has this great defense. I just don't see it. I think Georgia trounces FSU in this game. It's not close. FSU's offense against Georgia's defense is going to be terrible. And this is why I said that I believe the committee made the correct call, leaving Florida State out of the playoff. It does take nuance to understand. Listen, if you just look at Michigan's reaction to having to face Alabama instead of Florida State, that should be the number one telltale sign. If I was sitting here previewing a Florida State-Michigan game, it would be a giant charade where I would pretend like Florida State has a chance with a backup, and I understand there are situations where backup quarterbacks come in and win, but in this spot, college football cannot afford another ridiculously non-competitive blowout game like we had last year with TCU and Georgia. I think Georgia trounces FSU. It's not going to be close. I love them to cover the 14-point spread, and I'm also expecting not a lot of opt-outs from Georgia either. It's just kind of their culture now. Brock Bowers, certainly, he had the injury early in the year. He could say, I'm opting out, I'm going to be a top 10 pick, but in general, like when you compare Georgia to Ohio State, it seems like their team culture is a lot better than Ohio State, as with Ohio State, you're going to be dealing with more opt-outs. We will see. And then the final game I'll be predicting, it is the Fiesta Bowl. This game happening at 1 o'clock on New Year's Day. This is before the two playoff games. It is Liberty, the upstart Liberty, undefeated. They will be taking on Oregon. Oregon dealing with that disappointing loss in their conference championship. I had them penciled in to face Michigan in the playoff. That's not happening, though. Oregon sitting minus 16 with a 90% chance to win. Bo Nix, his final college game, he already said he's not opting out. He's going to be playing in it. You look at this Liberty team, and I can respect that they're undefeated. I get it, but the schedule is horrible. They didn't almost lose to New Mexico State, but that was a very competitive football game. This is another game I do not think will be close at all. Oregon, they're going to want to end the season on a strong note. It's unfortunate what happened against Washington, but I do not see this football game as being competitive. Liberty was 13-0, and they're in this game kind of by default because you had the situation with both Tulane and SMU. If Tulane would have beaten SMU, Tulane would be here. If SMU had their starting quarterback, they very likely would be here. Neither of those things happened. Again, I get it. Liberty is 13-0, but they quite literally had the easiest schedule in all of FBS, ranked 133 out of 133. Now, in terms of giving out bets for these games, I mean, listen, it's a little bit early for that. I'm going to come out with my official bets and stuff like that probably next week or the week after and kind of just trickle them out. It's hard because I don't know exactly who's sitting out for Ohio State, but I would like Ohio State kind of in a pick'em scenario, or at this point, plus 1.5. I like the over 49.5 in that Ohio State-Missouri game as well. Ole Miss taking on Penn State. Penn State sitting minus 3.5. I probably would pass on that. Over under at 49.5. I take the under 49.5 in that one. Georgia, Florida State. I do like Georgia very easily winning that game, covering the 14-point spread. And then this final one, I love Oregon covering the 16. I know there's been a lot of Cinderellas that have won this game. The group of 5 auto bid. Last year we saw it with Tulane. I just don't think this Liberty team is the same. I know people are going to try and draw the comparison. They're going to say Liberty's undefeated. It's great. But again, it's that schedule. It's been so bad. I do like Oregon very easily. The over-under in this game sitting at 65.5. I'd probably stay away from that. I'm not sure if Liberty's going to score enough to get the over in that game. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.